Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Longhorn Weekly with Longhorns head football coach Charlie Strong as the Longhorns get ready to be back home to take on the Baylor Bears this Saturday afternoon at Royal Texas Memorial Stadium. It's a 2:30 kickoff as Texas will host Baylor. I always ask you this every time about how good it is to be home again. And given the fact that your team has played well at home, that kind of even adds to it, right?
It really does, Craig, and they love playing at home, and we have the crowd behind us. And for some reason, I don't know why we get a better response at home than on the road, but it's good to come back home and then play an opponent like Baylor, number 6 team in the country. And we know this. We're going to have to be at our best on Saturday.
Well, a couple of things that you've talked about, and we'll touch on a lot of themes as well this evening, but a couple of things that you've talked about is that C word, that consistency word that you want to see out of both sides, not just the offense, not just the defense, but the offense, both sides, special teams, all of the areas. And for a young football team that's trying to progress and trying to move forward, is that the most challenging thing you think, especially for a younger group of guys, is being able to establish that consistency on a week-in, week-out basis?
Well, when you look at it, it's just about accountability, and you think about, okay, you can play so well at home, then you go on the road, and you just don't play well, and will it be the focus or whatever. But you're always looking for consistency, and you have to have it in all three phases. Because at one point, the offense can't play well, then the defense doesn't play well, then the kicking game doesn't play well. All three of them have to be going, and they have to play well. But it's got to be consistency, and you look at it from each group, and even the position groups, you're looking for them to just have some success.
Well, and again, this will continue on what we're talking about the young thing. And when Quan Cosby joins us next segment, I'll get his thoughts from how a player's perspective is and how they deal with it. I'm curious to have you discuss a little bit how guys, and it doesn't necessarily have to be freshmen and sophomores, it could be juniors and seniors as well, 18 to 22-year-old student athletes manage in this day and age, especially with social media and everything else, the words outside noise, how they deal with outside noise, how they block it out, wall it off, deal with going back to work, correcting the things that you and the coaching staff have pointed out to them, and to go forward that to keep them from kind of pressing and getting too down on themselves when things don't go the way they want them to go.
Well, the first thing, and what you said there at the end, is what you try to talk to them about, where they don't get down on themselves. Because in the media world that we live in now, there's social media, they're going to get out, they're going to read, and they want to read about themselves, and it isn't always good. So I tell them all the time, listen here, guys, it's just you got to block it out. You can't listen to the noise in the system. All that you have right now is within this room when we're talking about having a team meeting or whatever. And what I try to do, Craig, is that I just try to meet with our players. And so last week I met with a group of them and just try to talk to them and say, listen, the message need to be delivered through you, through the rest of the team, and you just talk to them about, hey, listen, you can't believe everything you read in the media. You know how the media is. But the key thing for us is just make sure we maintain our focus. You can't worry about anything else, whether it be the media, fans, whomever. You can't worry about it. If people being negative, that's fine. But you just got to understand you have 5 games left, and just worry about those games one by one, and let's take them one by one, and let's be concerned about the games.
Before the season and early in the season, you talked about having some leadership, whether it comes from veterans or even some sophomores who played an awful lot as freshmen, that kind of thing. You said we've got to be able to establish some leadership. Are those the guys that you're talking about? Have you kind of, in your mind, identified those are the guys that you're having the meetings with to get the message disseminated to the rest of the guys about not pressing and blocking out the outside noise? Those guys that you said early on, we're going to have to identify some leaders.
Well, what happened, you have such a small senior class, and you look at our senior class, if you look at us on offense, there's Blewett, there's Pert, there's Petey. So you're looking at those guys there on offense, and you just knowing this, that they're all are contributing in some way, some form and fashion. That they're all playing and they're contributing. And on defense, there's Boyette, there's Tim Cole, and so what you try to do is, since you have a small class, is that you have to get the juniors involved and even some of the sophomores, because a lot of your players are coming out of the sophomore class, some of the freshmen, but the juniors and sophomores or where the players are coming out of. So you have to get those players involved, and you have to talk to them about, hey, guys, this is the message. This is what we're trying to get accomplished. This is what we have to get accomplished, whether it be consistency, whether it be accountability, whether it be responsibility. whatever it is, we all have to be involved and we all have to be on the same page.
When things are difficult, certainly guys have to turn to one another, like you said, in the coaching staff, because you say, hey, we've got your back, we'll be okay. All that. But I know it's not just with the players. You get a lot of folks have asked you about support from the administration, and that's certainly there, but you also get a lot of support and help from parents, don't they? I mean, you have a pretty open line of communication with the players, the parents of these guys.
Oh, it's so funny now because it's like every day on my phone I'm getting a message from a parent and
you okay?
Yes, I'm okay. But they're so supportive and their concern is I know my son's gonna be okay. How are you doing? I'm fine. I'm okay. But it's great that you see that type of support because, a lot of times when you're going through tough times or even not so much tough times, Greg, but, where you hit a slump or so, you get, some players end up not so much they turn on you, but there comes noise from the families, and that hasn't happened. And that's that thing that sometimes people wonder, why isn't that happening? Why isn't, this player speaking or this parent? And that's why you got to talk to them about it. You got to be consistent with your message, and they have to hear that message over and over.
Well, the other thing that we've talked about is how about the foundation that's being placed for that. Over the last 2 years, 32 true freshmen have played significant snaps, 10 in 2015, 5 this season in 2016, have started out of that group. All totaled, 32 true freshmen have combined for 83 total starts, and the 5 true freshman starters this season are tied for the second most nationally, with 10 last year, also among the best in the country. I mean, there's a learning curve no matter how talented you are with guys when you're playing 83 freshmen or 32 true freshmen with 83 snaps.
Sometimes get lost in the whole message. And I was talking to someone today, Craig, and I said, yeah, we play, and you don't ever look for excuses, not because I'm not an excuse guy, but I said, but sometimes people forget who we play, because you play tough competition, and so when you roll out those young players against a veteran team and a team that's been established and a team where there's been a foundation laid, you're going to have to go play your best. And I said, we forget sometimes there's good coaches in this league, and they know how to coach.
With veteran teams.
With veteran teams. So don't think all of a sudden you're just going to go right in there. Because when they're looking at you like, okay, you come to try to, embarrass us or beat us, so they're going to give you their best, and that's what we're getting. And we forget that sometimes. I think we forget, like, okay, you got to go to such and such place and play. I understand that. We got to be at our best because you're going against a good football coach, and you're playing and not so much you're playing a bunch of young guys, but you're playing a bunch of guys that haven't been in that type of environment. And even when you think about your senior class, Craig, a lot of those guys haven't been starters, so they can't really deliver that message that you want to get delivered because they haven't been. They've been there. They've been there, but they really haven't played enough to really say, "Hey guys, this is what you got to get ready for when we go here." This, the game, some of the games like the Dallas is easy. I mean, okay, we go and play Oklahoma, that's easy. But then when you go to some of the other places, because some of them haven't been there, and even if they have been there, they haven't played. Mm-hmm. So now you got to talk to them. Hey, this is what's going to happen there. This is what they're going to do to us, and this is what we got to get accomplished. This is a hostile environment, and they wait. And let me say this: when we go on the road, they're sitting there waiting on us to get there.
No doubt about it. All right, coming up, Quan Cosby will join us as we also kind of get that player's perspective as well. This is Longhorn Weekly with head coach Charlie Strong, live from Plucker's, the West Campus location here in Austin on the Longhorn IMG Radio Network. Bouchel pumps, looks, he's going deep up the sideline. Man open, caught in midfield. Devin Duvernay. Forget it, folks. They're not catching him. Say goodnight to it. Touchdown, 80 yards. Longhorns strike back. Big play in the Saturday game against Kansas State. Devin Duvernay, the 80-yard touchdown. He has 3 touchdown catches in 3 consecutive games. The average yardage on those touchdown catches is 72.7 yards per reception. I immediately went to Quan right after to get his thoughts on it because I know how jealous of his speed is the best way to describe it. You thought it was something else.
No, not jealous at all. Happy for him, but I don't think I had a 70-yard touchdown in my entire career at Texas. But I had some touchdowns, but not 70. So no, I mean it's so cool to see his growth. And it started, just short passes, making more of them, but now he's just running by guys. And ultimately, they know his speed, and they try to back up or whatever they may try to do. and he's just still running by guys. Maybe in my youth that could have happened, but when I got back from baseball, that wasn't in my game. So it's really cool to see, man. He's extremely explosive.
And he's a guy that one of these freshmen that we talked about, Charlie, but a guy who's made strides in a hurry. He's really ramped up quickly now.
He really has. And you look at our offense and Sterling and the receiver coaches, when you look at what they've done with him and with Jeff and with Charlie and Trailer, it's amazing because you would look and you think like, the fourth or fifth game he's going to come on, and that's what he's done. And he's really come on. And not only can he catch the deep ball, he's a good possession receiver, can make a guy miss, and he's still taking the distance. But he works very hard, doesn't say nothing. You can talk to him. You're not going to get much out of him. Very quiet, but he just goes about his work the right way.
Quan, I wanted to get your thoughts on something Charlie and I were talking about in the first segment, and that is that concept, and see if you can call on it a little bit from your time as a student athlete. Again, it's that phrase, cutting out the outside noise, so to speak, walling it off and being able to zero in on the task at hand. It's probably, and I think you made this point we talked about, it's more challenging now than ever before because you didn't have the social media element to deal with 8 years ago that is going on right now with it.
Well, and I'm a little bit older, so I didn't have it, especially from a high school perspective. But when I came back, we had it. But it wasn't on this level. What coaching those guys have to deal with is it's, as they say, things go viral now. It's mind-blowing. I was at Monday Night Football, and one sign I tweeted, and it got retweeted 500,000 times, and I was blown away by no Snapchat. And so I was like, I cannot believe there's that many people doing that, and that's why the guys are so infatuated with it. They sign the UT and get 15,000 people following them. And we didn't have that. And then you add that other factor of our level of focus. I always try to do, it's not apples to apples. I'll be like, man, they didn't focus like we do. It's hard, man. I mean,
it's a different world for them now than it was when they were.
It's so much different. There's more of them. The Snapchat didn't even exist, aging myself. And just all these different things. Now, I don't have a Facebook because I'm a lot better at avoiding temptation than fighting it. So why am I going to get on there and get addicted to it? And so it's just so many different elements. But ultimately, like I know Huff has talked to them about, you really, when it comes down to it, if there's something you really want to do, it's hard enough to go to school and be an athlete. So you have to cut out, all those little things that's going to get in the way of any of that. And so as they get older, as they really see their futures and really try to make their mark on their careers in this university, it'll get easier for them. It's just all a maturation process that, again, the young guys slowly but surely are figuring out.
Yeah, and when you used to play, Quan, and Charlie, I know you could probably weigh in on this. What I used to hear about the biggest distraction for players back when you were playing was not obviously social media. It was video games. We always heard guys are playing video games.
True. That's a good point.
That was the thing. Roy Williams used to talk about how he was, he was really locked in on video games, that sort of thing. So the dynamic may change in terms of the element, but still the coaching is still there trying to get guys back on center, isn't it?
Well, what Quan was talking about, if you think about it, Craig, this starts even before they ever get to college. So, I got a daughter right now. She's in the 10th grade. That's her life. And you have to take her. You go to dinner, you have to take her phone from her because if you don't, she's going to be she's going to be Snapchatting. She's going to be doing something with that phone. So you have to take it, put it down. But it's just the life we're in. And then for the players, and it's so true because when they sign here, all of a sudden they get all these followers. So they're trying to figure out, okay, what are these people saying about me? Who is it?
Exactly.
And they want to read, they want to read everything. And if it's good, they all over it. Now, when it gets bad, then they want to, throw it down. And who is that person? Right. But it's what you're dealing with, and it's social media, and that's the way it is now for our young people. That's what they live with.
It's the way it is for our older people.
Yeah.
I was almost late tonight because I think every person checks something at the stop not stoplight.
Stoplight. They shouldn't be. They should be.
And I was like, come on, man, let's go. I'm in a hurry. But every time it was someone on their phone whenever
so what
went
you?
around.
It was somebody else.
Oh, no. I was trying to get here, man. So it's a problem for really kind of the times we live in right now.
All right.
It is.
We'll talk some more of the football variety items coming up when Longhorn Weekly with head coach Charlie Strong continues in a moment. You know, Quan, we've been talking about all of the outside stuff, but another thing that Charlie and I talked about early in the program is the communication through the leadership on the football team. And he said, you know, you get a group of guys that you visit through them, and then you have them disseminate the information.
Right.
You were one of those guys through whom that type of stuff was disseminated when you were playing at Baz. What about the role that those guys have, and how they have to help bring some of the younger guys along, as you as a leader, as those who are the leaders have to kind of bring them in and bring them along?
You know, they have a huge role, but then there's that trust factor, there's that respect standpoint. In order to be in that role, and you can kind of get put there, but it's kind of like getting to the NFL. You know, it's real hard to get to the NFL, but it's harder to stay in the NFL.
Yes.
And in other words, you have to keep producing from that perspective. Actions always speak louder than words, and especially with the kids now. I mean, if you're talking to them or you're yelling at them or you're saying something and you're not adding yourself, or you're not, you know, throwing in there that you need to do, you know, get your game better as well, that's instantly that they're going to quit respecting you. And so it's so many different factors. And, you know, on this team, there's young guys kind of, you know, working themselves in their role. There's older guys that are, you know, kind of trying to play that role. So ultimately, and Charlie could tell this better than me, from the outside looking in most cases, I can tell exactly who that leader is on so many levels. I can be like, man, this guy, he's leading. This guy, you can see guys kind of look to a certain guy when times get tough. And for me personally, I'm still not 100% sure who that guy is. You know, and that's a problem for that role that you're talking about.
Yep.
Because, I mean, when Colt came in as a freshman, everybody would think, you know, starting quarterback. No, it was our linemen. We had 3 NFL linemen right there who led everything we did. You know, they left. We had, you know, Swede, me, in different positions and guys. You know, our running backs, we had Jamal. So on defense, we had we can name 10 guys on that side, Huff. And so, again, when you're not real sure, even though guys try to do it, and kudos to them for trying, everybody's trying hard, but that true 100% level of listening or respect, it's earned, and it takes time just as much as anything else.
But you know what, you made a great point, because earlier when you said, you know, there's so many guys that are playing, so you got a bunch of young guys playing. So the young players, because they may think that they're better than the older players,
Right.
and because they're playing more.
Yeah.
So in order for an older player, a lot of times older players don't speak up because they're not playing as much, and really, I'm not the guy, I'm not the starter, so what am I going to say? No, it doesn't matter. You put in your time here. You still have a voice.
Right.
But they don't want to use that voice because, you know, what have I done, coach? So
That guy's playing more than I am.
And so the young guys looking at him like, man, what are you going to tell me? I'm kind of not taking your position, but I'm playing more.
And as a coach and your staff, you got to manage all that.
You have to manage it. That's why, as coaches, you have to be the leader sometimes, because when you have a young team, you really have to lead the team, because now there's so many of those young guys that are playing, and you don't want them to be taught the wrong thing, because now all of a sudden they're starting. And for some of them, how hard did they really have to work to start? Right. And now they really think that, you know, all of a sudden I was this hot shot recruit, now I'm a starter. Like,
and I have to touch on that, because when you don't have that one, just defined one, or that 2 or 3 or 10, and the coach has to do it, that is great, and you can do it, but it only goes so far.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
It is.
At some point, the players have to take ownership.
Because in the fourth quarter, when you're down by a touchdown and you have that last drive, coach can't get out there.
No.
You know, you have to go make that happen. And so that's where those growing pains are, from perspectives of, you know, Oklahoma State was rough, but the rest of them, they're so close. And I told someone that I was like, they're like 2 or 3 plays away. And that's from a leadership perspective and a making play standpoint, 2 or 3 plays away from, you know, being 6-1. And so that's, again, just dissecting it and looking back, that's where my optimism, I know, Coach, you know, you deal with a lot more than I do, but my optimism rolls in.
All right, the leader of the University of Texas Athletics Department, Athletic Director Mike Perrin, joins us next when Longhorn Weekly continues right here on the Longhorn IMG Radio Network. We welcome you back to Longhorn Weekly, and how about a round of applause for our special guest, the Athletic Director of the University of Texas, Mike Perrin. It's great to see you again. You're becoming an old pro at this, sitting in and chatting.
Glad to be here, Craig. Absolutely. Good to see you.
Busy time. You got big weekend, Distinguished Alumni Weekend going on. The governor, one of those distinguished alumni. I know it's an important weekend here on campus, isn't it?
It's really one of our great traditional weekends. The Texas Exes select distinguished alumni to be presented at the game. They'll have activities tomorrow night, presentation with their biographical information and all that, but then a big part of it is Saturday during the game. With Governor Abbott being honored this week, that'll be great.
Explain to folks a little bit about what it takes to be a distinguished alumnus. There's thousands and thousands of alumni here in the Austin area. It really does. You really are distinguishing yourself. You're doing something special to be able to get that achievement.
It is truly a great process that the Texas Exes go through. They receive nominations from alumni and others that are interested, review the biographical information, and it's an honor that looks at the body of work that alums have done throughout their career in public service or healthcare, whatever the chosen field may be. It's really a spectacular evening where people come together, learn about the current honorees, but also past honorees from many, many years are there in their orange jackets, and it's a wonderful event, a coming together.
It wasn't that long ago that you passed the 1 year milestone here in being athletic director. Wasn't that long ago? Does it seem like 1 year or longer than that?
Well, it's funny. When we were out for the Cal game, a friend came up to me at one of the events before the game and said, "Well, what's it been, 3 years now?" And I said, "No, actually, today is 1 year and 1 day." But it's been an absolute whirlwind and so much fun to be back on campus, Craig, with the energy of our coaches and players, the faculty involvement. The athletic director has a slightly different role. I'm not coaching or playing, and working behind the scenes to improve things for our student athletes on all counts: nutrition, sports science, strength, conditioning, training, plus making their grades and all that. It's a fascinating position. I've really enjoyed it. It's hard to believe it's been a year.
I guess what you just named is how the athletic director's position really kind of has evolved over time, more than just being the guy that's making sure that the money's coming in and that the coaches are happy and that they're performing and all. I mean, it's very multifaceted now, even more so than it's ever been before.
Very much so. It's a major undertaking for an institution like the University of Texas, because we identify students in high school, we ask them to come here, and then we're responsible for feeding with good nutrition. Some need to gain weight, some need to lose weight. Year-round conditioning, the whole atmosphere has changed so much since I first enrolled here 51 years ago.
Well, all right. Since you took me in that direction, I'm gonna get you to kind of go in the Wayback Machine a little bit. Baylor and Texas, now of the schools that are on the Longhorn schedule, this is the most played rivalry for the Longhorns of the schools that they're playing. So. And you were involved in several of those as a student athlete as well. But I know that your connection with following what was going on really started before you were a player at the University of Texas, when you were still growing up in Milam County? When
Milam County.
When you were over there in Cameron growing up and got a chance to follow what was going on, going all the way back to the 63 national championship team and what the game they had that year against Baylor.
Absolutely. Cameron is uniquely situated that way. It's 50 miles from Waco and about 75 miles from Austin. So we had coaches and others that would take players to games at both places. And so, you became somewhat familiar with the teams and the players. So in 63, the year we won our first national championship here, that was the big showdown match. Both teams were 4-0 coming into the game, if I remember correctly. Baylor had two great players. They had depth at every position, but they had two really fine players. Don Truell, playing quarterback, All-American, several years ago inducted into the National Football Foundation College Hall of Fame. A great receiver, Lawrence Elkins, who went on to play pro ball as well as Don did. Texas, my memory is nobody scored in the first half. If we did score, it was right before halftime. But Tommy Stockton from Bryan took it in and gave us a 7-0 lead. Late in the game, Baylor was driving, and Duke Carlisle, our quarterback, hadn't played defense in a year or so, but Coach Royal put him in. And one of the iconic pictures you'll see in various places, books, the tea room, places like that, Carlisle comes out of nowhere. There's a pass thrown by Trill to Elkins cutting across from the left side. Carlisle comes out of nowhere and intercepts it in the end zone. We hang on to have a 7-0 victory, which was critical at that time. And then we go on to upset TCU, and then the great game with A&M that leads up to the game against Navy. So it's a game I'll never forget.
And you were what, 16 at the time?
16.
Yeah,
yes.
and I mean, had you already decided 16 was the University of Texas was where you wanted to go, or did that game kind of help shape and mold what you were thinking in terms of where you wanted to play college football?
That was one of several games. In those days, youngsters could get into the stadium for 50 cents. They called it the knothole gang, and if you came to Memorial Stadium for 50 cents, you were guaranteed admission to the stadium, not a seat. It was general admission in the north end zone. But being around that program at that time with great players and Coach Royal was just such a great figure. That the hook really got set there, but I had no guarantee that I would be on their list. You know, that's a two-way street, and luckily I had a great team and great coaches my senior year in high school, and was asked to come down here, and there was never any doubt in my mind.
Well, the other thing I heard about that game, and you might be able to help me out with this, I heard that at least up to that point, and maybe for several years afterwards, that was the toughest ticket ever to try to get to a Longhorn football game. Was that Baylor game was an incredibly difficult ticket to try to get. So I would imagine getting in with the knothole gang for 50 cents probably was a little bit of a challenge that day.
It was. I don't remember the crowd. The stadium in those days was only about 63 or 4,000. We didn't have any of the upper seats on the west side, and but it was packed. It was absolutely packed. And whenever you see pictures of that game or hear people talk about it, it was just an unbelievable battle. I later heard that when Elkins got back to Waco, he had to be helped off the bus. He was such a competitor and ran so many patterns and had been just totally involved in the entire game.
Would it be safe to say that if you wanted to bring back the knothole game thing, it would be a difficult proposition in this day and age with what we have with college football now?
It would be very difficult. It sure would. It sure would.
Well, and then the other thing, and folks talk about, hey, the athletic director supports his coaches, and during football season they talk about supporting the football coach. But you're all over the place. You're with coaches of the other fall sports. We're just visiting with Coach Fields. We're going to talk Texas golf here in a few moments. I mean, that keeps you busy checking in and keeping tabs on and visiting with your head coaches of your other varsity sports too, doesn't it?
Well, that's one of the great things about it. I met with Shaka Smart yesterday morning. We had some issues that we're dealing with on basketball scheduling and travel and things like that. And then a couple hours later, I was with David Pierce on baseball. And, of course, they're playing, you see on the back monitor back there, they're playing right now in the orange and white game over there. So it's a busy place. It always is with 20 varsity sports, roughly 500 athletes between men and women's sports. And there's a lot going on all the time somewhere. A great group of youngsters, and it's fun to be with them.
It's always fun to have you drop by. Appreciate you dropping by, Mike.
Thank you very much, Craig. Good to see you.
All right, Mike Perrin, University of Texas Athletics Director. We're going to talk some Texas golf with John Fields up next when Longhorn Weekly continues in a moment. We welcome you back to Longhorn Weekly here live from Plucker's, the West Campus location. We always visit with a varsity sport head coach in addition to our time with Charlie Strong, and glad to be joined by John Fields, University of Texas men's golf coach. I ask you this every year, but I think it's worthy of repeating every year about how the outstanding group of guys you have, how hard they work. In the fall, we always think about spring and competing for national championships, and your team got right down there to the wire with Oregon on their home course back in the spring. But a lot of the work is built in the fall, isn't it?
It is. A lot of our guys go at it so hard from January to the first part of June with the national championship, so that's their collegiate season. And then they go at it really hard in the summer. They play in the major amateur events plus the U.S. Amateur. That takes them June, July, and August. And then when they get to me, they really kind of need a break. But we jump right into our schedule, and we play 4 tournaments in the fall, and they work really hard. I'm really proud of our guys.
How do you manage that? Like you said, they kind of need a break, but yet you also need them when you need them on those 4 events to be dialed in and be playing some of their best golf. So how do you've been at this a long time, you've done it so well for so many years. How do you manage all of that between the proper amount of mental as well as physical rest and what you need from them on the golf course?
Well, I wish I had all the answers, but it doesn't always work out that way. Each of the last 3 years, we've started off a little bit slow, and I think that is simply because they are a little bit exhausted when they get here. But we still want to be highly competitive, and we managed to win this last week in Georgia at the Golf Club of Georgia, and probably the strongest field that we'll see until the middle of the spring season. So I was really happy for them, happy that they got a victory, and we had some very, very good individual performances.
Among those, by the way, and this was his first win of the season at the Golf Club of Georgia Collegiate on Sunday, where the Longhorns got their first win of the fall season. It seems like I've been calling these names for years. Your senior Gavin Hall, who had a third-round 63 in the event. Your junior Doug Gim, who shot all 3 rounds under par to finish third. That kind of stuff. And Charlie and I have talked about leadership. Leadership and production equals success of a team. And when you've got it both from your upperclassmen, it really makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does. We've got 3 All-Americans that have returned: Gavin Hall, Doug Gim, and Scotty Scheffler. Yep. Scotty Scheffler being the United States junior champion, and several of them. Scotty played in the United States Open this year, which was amazing. But all of those guys give us a lot of leadership and give us the opportunity to have some stability within our program. Taylor Funk is outstanding and is a great player in his own right, and put us on his back last year at the NCAA and carried us. He did a great job. And now we're building from the back end, too. Stephen Cervoni is a young man that doesn't have a lot of experience, but for him to step in and then have those 4 guys with that kind of experience, it helps us so much.
We talk about, you mentioned Scotty Scheffler playing at the Open. How much does the experience of playing in those types of events, a major championship in that case, in Scotty's case, how much does that help for what you need out of them in the fall and then on into the next spring, while, again, all the while managing the rest plus the work?
Yeah, for truth be known, I think that it actually changes them for the rest of their life. You get a chance to play in the U.S. Open. Gavin Hall played at Marion years ago, and it just elevates their confidence and their belief in themselves, and it helps them matriculate out onto the PGA Tour after they play for us. But for us, what it does, it validates who they are, and you've always got that in the back of your mind. Sport's tough. Golf's tough, and it's tough in that it kind of ebbs and flows. You have peaks and valleys, but what I tell our guys is that we always want to be on a vertical incline, so to speak, but we know there's going to be peaks and valleys as we go along. So again, they work so hard. I'm really proud of them. They work hard in the classroom, and we've got so many people helping us be who we are.
Toward that end, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about this, because we talk about all the things that Jordan Spieth has accomplished in his professional career at such an early age, and what he did and what he means and has meant to the University of Texas as well. I'm curious to get your thoughts on your current student athletes, how they interact with him when he comes to town for a weekend, and what their mindset is like, and the conversations they have, how that kind of value comes from not only everything that Jordan has accomplished, but what it means when he comes back to town.
Well, one of the neat things is he's still young enough where a lot of these guys that are on my team played with him in junior golf. Gavin Hall, years ago at Egypt Valley, shot 62 in the second round of the United States Junior and tied Jordan Spieth for second in the medal play. So he's known him a long time. Doug Gim and Scotty Scheffler have known Jordan Spieth for years. But what it does is, for them, it validates who they are, because they've played with him. They believe they can compete with him. And as a result, we've got a better team.
You're going to close the fall season coming up next weekend at the East Lake Cup. And by the way, for those of you who want to watch it, it's going to be televised live on the Golf Channel. It's a match play event that's going to serve as a rematch from the 2016 championship in the semifinals. Illinois, Oregon, Vanderbilt, and Texas. You guys, I would imagine, are looking forward to that opportunity.
They are really excited about the opportunity. First of all, they created it because you have to finish as a semifinalist to have the opportunity to go to East Lake. And for that fall event, I think it's growing in stature. This will just be the second year. But I know they're happy about having Texas there. We're happy about being there, and we're going to give our best.
Okay. It's great to see you, as always. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, John Fields, Texas golf coach. Coming up, Charlie Strong rejoins us when we continue here on the Longhorn IMG Radio Network. You've got a pretty good one in Deontay Foreman and everything he's been able to do so far. It's amazing now. It's 8 consecutive games for him rushing for over 100 yards and takes a lot of punishment and yet just kind of sails through it kind of quietly and with a real unobtrusive nature about him, the way that he goes about his business.
I love that, unobtrusive nature.
Yeah, unobtrusive nature about him, yeah.
But, you know, he's an unbelievable player. And he just worked so hard. And I think about, like, last year. I don't even think he started, but he played very well in the games. And then he comes into this season. And before Chris went down with the injury, you know, we heard Harry was sharing time, never complained about it, still got his numbers. But he just continues to just go. And as the game goes on, he just gets stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I started to say third and fourth quarter looks like he really turns it on for you there. And I know you were asked about this at the news conference on Monday. Sterling Gilbert was asked about it on Tuesday. And developing depth at the running back spot. And, of course, you had it with Chris Warren before he was banged up. Kyle Porter is still continuing to make strides. And I know you still want to get a little more of a look at little Jordan Humphrey when it works out.
Oh, he will. And right now, Kyle's doing a really good job for us. You know, he's coming in and he's spelling a big 33 when he gets a little tired. But we'll get our chance to give Jordan some touches because Jordan was a running back in high school, and he was a really good running back in high school. Big, you know, he's got a really good body on him. And the thing he does is to be so tall, he can still run low and keep his body tight and protect the ball.
Is that the biggest challenge for taller running backs? He's 6'4", and there's guys you don't think of it as guys that have that much height being running backs. Is that one of the bigger challenges, making sure that he can get low and run behind the pads and things of that nature?
And that's the thing he can do. He can run behind his pads because you think he's 6'4", but he can get down and he can bend because we let him run it some in practice, so we get a chance to see him in practice. But he protects his body and don't take the big hits.
Let me get to a couple of questions from folks here in the restaurant. One from Chris, who wanted to know when it comes to not just football but life, who would you say has been your greatest mentor to this point, and what is the best piece of advice they've ever given you? Good life, football, whoever it is, whether it was a coach or an administrator, who's been your greatest mentor to this point?
Well, you know what, I was very fortunate to work with a lot of coaches, and a guy that, you know, we still talk to this day is Lou Holtz, and he's always giving me great advice. He actually sent me a text this morning about the game coming up, but he's always been there.
Yeah, and he's a guy that dispenses advice about life as much as football, doesn't he?
And that's why, you know what, Craig, that's really how I learned all my principles and ideas, because it was more than just football with him. You know, it's all about just developing young men, and that's what you try to do when you coach. It's all about, you know, inspiring and developing young men and trying to change their life and make their life better for themselves.
How old were you, do you think, when it dawned on you? Because when we're all young, we're kind of immersed in what we're doing, and young football coaches are immersed in football. But how old would you say you were when you realized, when that really dawned on you, that this had to be about more than just winning football games? It had to be about developing young men, molding young men, student athletes, guys who would get their degrees and go on and have great lives beyond the football field. How old would you say you were then?
You know, Craig, I don't know my age, but I can remember I was coaching, and you would see so many young men, they would go through and hoping that the NFL was going to be their meal ticket, and it didn't work out for them. So now all of a sudden they didn't really, you know, use school and take advantage of the education. They didn't take advantage of it all. So now all of a sudden they're done. And so now here you are taking a young man who would use up 4 years of his college, and he doesn't have a degree, and he's not in the NFL. So there's no way he's going to go get a job, because I would tell him that all the time. I said, what do you have? You have nothing to come to the table with. You don't have a degree. So what do you say to someone? And so then it started just dawning on me that, you know, I kept saying, you know, whomever I coach or whomever I have an opportunity to work with, they're going to get a degree. If anything, they're going to get a degree. Now, I hope they're good enough to go play in the NFL, but that's going to come that's second for me. But I'm always talking about, because it changes your life, and now all of a sudden you have something to fall back on. And I can remember I was a young coach, and probably I was at the University of Florida probably then, and I would just see that happen. And I can remember I had a player, and he came through, did not get his degree. So then it was so funny. Years later, his son comes, so he has a son, and I'm coaching his son. And I said to his son,
that made you feel young.
Yes, it did. So I said to his son, I said, how's your dad doing? So his dad came up when they were talking, and he said, you know what? I should have listened to you. He said, now I've got 4 kids, and I didn't get my degree, and I need a degree. And my son is going to get his degree from the University of Florida. And I was like, yeah, he is. But
and it was very rewarding for you that you were at least able to help his son get his degree.
But like he said, Coach, I had a family. I started working. So then when did I have time to do it? And he didn't have time.
Wow, good point. Coming up next, we'll preview this Saturday's matchup with the Baylor Bears when Longhorn Weekly continues in a moment. The shotgun, Tyrone has it, rolls to the left side, swoops, cuts inside, Tyrone to the 5 for the goal line. Touchdown, Texas. Tyrone swoops in that 18-wheeler package, charges into the end zone for the second Texas touchdown of the day. Back here on Longhorn Weekly, it's funny that we have that highlight there of Tyrone scoring a touchdown there out of the 18-wheeler package. The other question I was going to get to, CJ was asking if there are any wrinkles that you felt you needed to add to the 18-wheeler package. It's a pretty good wrinkle right there when you get him to get it to the end zone.
Oh, it's a great wrinkle. And you know, the thing about Tyrone, he's just so hard to tackle. And even when he broke outside, he missed it. The guy missed him, and then he stepped on him too, and then he's able to take it in for the end zone. But he can do so much, and we're going to use him a lot more because he is so valuable to our offense.
Now, CJ also asked, and by the way, you're not alone on this, that this question came up not from CJ but from others in the past. It happened with Coach Brown and coaches on back. They wanted to know if you would consider running the wishbone with Shane under center, then Tyrone, Deontay, and then having somebody else in the backfield as well. The wishbone was great in its time, but those are the key words there, in its time, right?
Well, I don't know if Shane can be that quarterback because you're going to have your little different guy back there, that quarterback position. Because you think about, can you remember when Roosevelt Leaks was lined up back there?
A little bit different.
It was a little bit different. But, the way it is now with
and by the way,
offense,
he had Blewett as the other back in the back.
Oh, no. Blewett cannot be the other running back. No, that for sure would not work. He needs to be a tight end.
Yeah. Let's talk about this matchup with Baylor. The Bears come in. They're ranked 8th in one poll, 6th in the other poll. They haven't lost a game yet. It looks like what Jim Grobe has done in terms of even though he came in and had to take over the program there, the coaching staff is still intact from last year, and it looks like they just kind of picked up where they left off.
Oh, he did. But you know what he did a great job of doing is Jim's always been a great coach. He did a really good job at Wake Forest. He kept assistants in place, and that really helped because then they knew the players and they had worked and they had been working with the players, so they knew the scheme. So now with Kendall being the coordinator, they haven't missed a beat, and they still have some really good players in that program. That's why they're undefeated, and it's going to be a really good, tough matchup for us on Saturday, and we're going to have to really play well. And you look at them on offense, they still are a lot of weapons at the wide receiver position. You look at how well Linwood's running the football. Then you look on defense. What they do on defense is they come with so much pressure and there's so much disruption. So we're gonna have to play our best to go beat them.
And of course, being back home where you haven't lost a game, this kind of brings us back full circle to where we began the show about good to be back home. Your guys play with quite a bit of confidence at home, don't they?
Oh, they do. But, more than anything, they have the crowd behind them. And so I think that with the crowd, with the added energy, with the enthusiasm, with what we bring with our crowd, it gets our players going.
And we've talked about the importance of getting off to a good start. We talk about it every week, and I know that especially against a team that can put points on the board in a hurry, that's crucial today, isn't it?
Well, you're going to have to. And the thing about it, they're going to score. So, can we match their score? And we just going to have to play really good on defense and not give up the big play. Keep everything in front of us, tackle the ball, and then when we get our opportunities on offense, take advantage of it.
Do you get the feeling that your young corners, guys like Chris Boyd and Bonnie and all the other guys as well, they look forward to the opportunity to go up against a guy like a KD Cannon, a really good receiver, and be able to hold their own and try to hold their own against them?
Well, you look at Boyd, and he's playing very well right now for us, and he's one of those guys that, the thing I really like about him, Craig, is he'll make a mistake and say, I'm okay, I'm good. No, you're not good. But the challenge is there for them. You're right, because you look at what Cannon can do and how well he can run, and Zamari on the outside. So it's going to be a big challenge.
All right, the challenge comes up Saturday afternoon, 1:30 with the pregame, the kickoff at 2:30 from Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, the Texas Longhorns against the Baylor Bears. Our thanks to our special guest tonight, Texas golf coach John Fields, also to University of Texas Athletics Director Mike Parent. For head coach Charlie Strong, I'm Craig Way. We thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the stadium on Saturday, and we'll see you at Plucker's right here next week at the same time on Longhorn Weekly.